What is going on, guys? It's been a couple days. Took a couple days off. Took Christmas Eve and Christmas. Spent that with my family, my girlfriend's family, which was a lot of fun. Excited to kind of jump back into the week that was with week 16. Only so many of these left as far as reviewing these big tournaments. Been playing the 1500 most of the year. This year, or this week in particular, decided to ramp things up a little bit just because of they actually didn't have my normal $1,500 tournament on DraftKings this week. Of course, they had the main event. Awesome, Max Alex 2007 with the 2-month resubscription. Awesome, man. Appreciate the resub. A lot of awesome stuff coming even after NFL, which is super exciting. Had a lot of time over the past couple of days to kind of brainstorm some stuff. So I was happy you'll be a part of it, man. A lot of familiar faces in the chat. Nice to have you guys back with us. Hope you guys had an awesome Christmas. John Kieran says he needs some NHL back in his life. Hey, man, I feel the same way. I feel like kind of out of it, actually, to be completely honest. After taking a couple of days off, I feel extremely unplugged, but I mean, a little bit refreshed in some ways. We got obviously week 17 for NFL, and then we have one of the best times of the year, postseason at NFL. We'll definitely have a stream at some point to talk about how my strategy shifts a bit for the postseason. But tons of time to talk about that. Today in particular, do want to go over my one team. And like I was saying before, the 1500 this week on DraftKings was the $1 million prize. So a lot bigger tournament than it normally is. So I had kind of a decision to make as far as what contest to play. I was either going to play, there was a 3180, so just over 3K buy-in with 34 people in it. So pretty small field size, relatively flat payout, 30K up top, which we'll talk about. But and then I was in between either that or playing a 2-max on DraftKings, the main slate at least, which was a 777. And I would have probably played 2 entries in that. But kind of my main decision between those 2 contests was going to happen on Sunday morning. I mean, if you guys were around for the Sunday stream with CSU Ram, I had both of those contests registered. Was still trying to make up my mind what I wanted to play, and the only way I was going to play the 3K tournament is if I landed on a team that I felt super comfortable with. So one of 2 things, actually. If I landed on one team that I was super comfortable with, or if for some reason I didn't have a lot of equity in the later games as far as late swap ability. That was kind of my main plan. At least that's what I've been doing on FanDuel most of the year. They have a 2-max that's, I think, a 535 buy-in on FanDuel. So anytime that's a 2-max and not a single entry, I basically play the same lineup twice and then have the upside. Obviously, if that lineup does well, it's a small field. But if I'm in trouble, I can basically late swap in 2 different directions with that core start, I guess. So it works the best when there's a lot of flexibility in the late games, and depending on lineup construction, I think that makes a lot of sense in certain scenarios to play the same team twice. And honestly, this week I definitely considered it. On Sunday morning, there was a few things that kind of changed my mind, which we'll talk about, but I did end up playing the 3K. So yeah, kind of every now and then you gotta grab your sack a little bit and play the bigger tournament. Didn't work out this week, unfortunately, but you know what? This is the kind of year where haven't actually talked about this a whole lot, but if you've had a really good year, myself, this is one of the best years I've ever had in DFS. So a lot of tax obligation coming, right? So for anyone that's had a really good 2018, it's never a bad idea to take a couple of shots late in the year, because you either obviously you either have a good showing, you win more money, and then the taxes don't really matter a whole lot, or maybe your winnings for the season go down a little bit if you extend the bankroll on a week, and then honestly you're just paying less taxes because you had less winnings. So great time to take a shot. I would rather take a shot on the 3K this past week than play my normal 1500 and then give the difference basically back to the government in a couple of weeks. So that's something I always like to mention. I don't think people really talk about that a ton, but we'll dive into that one more week of firing at some bigger stuff, hopefully. But we'll see what's out there. I haven't taken a look at the actual prize pools yet. Doozy says full detox here, 0 productivity. Yeah, a lot of people had to get back to work today, huh? I kind of extended my Christmas to one more day. Just had the final dinner with the family, with the girlfriend's family. Got back here just in time. That's why we're actually getting started a little bit later. Just had to get everything set up and whatnot. But Awesome Christmas on my end. It was a lot of fun. Obviously, it's kind of a disaster to try and juggle NBA, and now that there's late swap. So yeah, we're not going to talk about a ton of NBA on this podcast, but I know a lot of you guys are grinding a bunch of different sports. Many of you guys are in the Discord, so if you're new to the stream, definitely make sure you're taking advantage of all three layers of what we have going here. We have Twitch, obviously. We also have YouTube throughout the week. There's going to be a lot more learning that goes on YouTube. Some content just to try and get you started in some new sports, and then also the Discord, and that's kind of where we bring everything together as a community when we're not on stream. So that's one thing that I think is super important. Definitely want to keep kind of building up that side of things as well. Steve Boyton with the 5 tier 1 gifted subs. Steve has been absolutely killing it. Thanks, man. I really appreciate that. If anyone got a gifted sub from Steve, definitely let him know in the chat. Awesome guy. He's been here almost since the beginning of all this, so he's done a lot of stuff for the community. So awesome that he's been just crushing it. And yeah, that actually reminds me, man. So we did have the contest, the sub only contest that we run every week. And then decided to run it back. It is Christmas time, obviously, so run it back. Anyone that finishes above me, that's the amount of free subs I was going to give out on this very stream. So we'll do that throughout the stream. We'll kind of do it gradually, I guess, as we go. We'll give out probably 5 here in a couple minutes, and then a couple times throughout the stream we'll give out 10, because actually we had a really good turnout, over 50 people in the sub only contest, which is awesome. I think that's the most we've ever had. So 25 people finished ahead of me this week. So yeah, 25 gifted subs will be on the way. Might as well get that started right now. Let's do 5 to get started here. See if I remember how to do this. And boom. So it looks like Donkey Pooncher, nice name, man. Michelle Matt, Jump Shot, Jay Green 40, Woody 2411 with the gifted subs from this past week on DraftKings. Always kind of, I guess, nice when I have either an average week or a below average week. It just means more subs kind of get gifted to the community. So if any of you guys are new, definitely check out the streams throughout the week. We grind a bunch of different sports here, and then you'll kind of get some help, obviously, in the Discord with a bunch of people that have been kind of helping out as well. So definitely kind of get involved in that. And if you're new, make sure you make it here on Sunday mornings. We do a Sunday morning show with CSU Ram 88. And then obviously a lot of you guys are coming over from Manny Laura's stream as well. He goes on right after me. I go on at 9 Eastern time. Manny goes on around 10:15. Ryan Hodge right after him. And then Al Smizzle brings us right up until lock. Have at least one more week of that, guys, and then we'll see what happens in playoffs. But it's going to keep going for sure on my end, past just football. So happy you guys will be with us. All right, let's catch up on the chat a little bit. H. Buddha was saying the cut line seemed really high this week. Yeah, and honestly, I actually feel pretty good about my team, which we'll talk about. I actually feel really good about some of the decisions that I made. Hate to see the NFL go, but it's forcing me to explore some other sports. Yeah, Don Robinson. So I talk about this probably a lot. We have people that are trying NHL for the first time. I'm sure some people will be trying things like MLB. Like, there's a ton of stuff we're going to continue to talk about. Who knows? Maybe we'll even get like some soccer shows, golf shows. Like, there's so many different ways that you can kind of scratch that DFS itch. And we always say, like, kind of in the community at least, like, we're DFS players first. We're not necessarily certain sports fans. Like, we have tons of guys that are playing DFS hockey that aren't necessarily hockey fans that have been having a decent amount of success. We play a lot of niche sports as well, as far as niche games like playing tiers, showdown. We're going to expand that. Props, player props as well. So yeah, that's gonna be awesome. H Buddha, yeah, fire away for tax purposes for sure. H Buddha been absolutely killing it. Happy to have him with us per usual. Definitely a big friend of the community and guy that has just been smashing this year. So I'm sure he has tons to fire before tax season as well. Obviously appreciate you, Steve, with those gifted subs as well. Shout out Jay Rogers in the chat. Trying to support Joe, Manny, and Smiz. Hey, R. Henderson, really appreciate that, man. We're getting closer to the partner side of things. We did get denied on the first kind of try there. Got to try and get some of the mid-week stream numbers up, but have a lot of plans for that. So hopefully we can kind of make that happen as NFL ends. But honestly, even if we don't hit partner before NFL, it's not a rush. We're not going anywhere, so it's gonna be good. A lot of cool things planned for sure. So we do have 20 more subs to give out from the sub only contest. Definitely have to do that throughout the stream. Steve, by the way, has been saying in the Discord like all week, but throws it out in the chat again. Had to give back after a great week. Always nice to pay for a season's worth of buy-ins in one day. Yeah, man, saw some screenshots from you in the Discord. Sounds like you had an awesome week, which is great. Steve actually sent me a DM earlier in the week about one of the Green Bay wide receivers that he thought would go under owned that he was on based on some of the research that he's done. So a lot of people doing some really great research in the Discord as well. So always kind of a higher level DFS conversation, which is great. So that's awesome. All right, guys. So let's, yeah, Ali, might have to check out some tennis for sure. Ali, I did get your DM, by the way. I'll answer that after this. I literally just got home. So, all right, let's jump over. Let's start on DraftKings. So I do want to start with my team for sure, and we'll start over there. So I mentioned that it's a $3,100 buy-in or so this past week. Only 34 people, so a little bit smaller than the tournament that I normally review. If you guys have been following along, I normally play 1,500, which is about 74, 72 people, I forget. But the best part about this week with the 3180 was it was a little bit better multiplier, right? So about 1.8 or so as far as a min cash, which we've talked about a lot. The 1,500 definitely is a little bit limiting because you only get a 1.5x on a min cash, which over the entire season, which is all I really care about, what my ROI is at the end of the season. It can kind of bleed you, especially if you have a couple min cashes, couple times where you miss the cash line, which I've definitely been battling through a little bit this year. So anytime you catch a decent structure like this one, I thought it was worth taking a shot for sure. Naturally, a lot of really good players in this tournament. We have Chipotle Addict, shout out Chipotle after what he did after the live final, giving away over $1 million to charity was awesome. Guys like Empire Maker, A Raven, Papa Gates, ton of guys, Peter Gibbons, like a lot of guys that are playing DFS at a super high level. So it's fun. It's fun to compete with these guys. And let's kind of jump into it. So I thought it was kind of an interesting week. And I still think that the biggest theme from the week in general was, did you want to play Tyler Heineke at 4K? So this is the first week I feel like we've had in quite some time on DraftKings where there was truly a quarterback to actually pay all the way down for. So the difference between a guy like Heineke and someone all the way at the top like Roethlisberger, huge difference in what you can do with your lineup. So at the quarterback position, there's a few things that I truly value. I value pace. I value game environment. So really what's going on at the line of scrimmage is extremely important because we want efficiency at quarterback no matter what. And that's something that definitely goes downhill when they're being pressured quite a bit. Pat Bain with the 5 tier 1 gifts. Thanks, Pat. Appreciate you, man. So the Real Griff 85, Dip Him in Beef, T-Coon 7, Steve Azores 24, and Sanders SquarePants. Make sure you thank Pat in the chat with the free gifted subs. Appreciate that, man. Again, hope you guys will be with us for the long term and kind of check things out. Everything we got going here, it's been a lot of fun. So yeah, this week in particular, I think that was the biggest thing you had to kind of decide on Sunday morning. So Tyler Heineke, I think that the rushing ability that he gave, obviously he's a pretty decent athlete. Any projection that you looked at on Sunday morning had Heineke for around 25 rushing yards as a median projection. That's super high for a guy you can get at 4K. So you didn't really need a ton from him. Obviously, we know that points at the quarterback position are extremely narrow as far as their range of outcomes. So anytime you can pay down for a guy like that against Atlanta, I thought it was really strong. One of the things that I'm always trying to do is give myself flexibility to pay up at the running back position. And that's one of the best ways that we had this past week to get up to the guys like Ezekiel Elliott, to get up to the guys like Saquon. Talk about McCaffrey in a minute. But so Heineke at 4K, obviously, all the money, at least if you're paying down at quarterback, went to the Nick Foles teams. So Nick Foles certainly a guy that I was considering at. I believe he was 4,700. I'll have to check here. 4,700. So pretty similar, like very cheap, obviously, and a great game environment for him. We'll talk about him, but between Foles and Heineke, the tiebreaker is always going to be rushing upside for me. Obviously, we didn't know exactly what Carolina was going to do with some of their players like Christian McCaffrey, if they were going to scale them back at all. But in a great game environment against this Atlanta team we've been attacking most of the year. And again, a rushing quarterback, right? Like, so Atlanta plays a ton of man, so there was going to be more opportunity for him to run on the ground. So a running quarterback at 4K in one of the best matchups possible, for him to get yards on the ground. Thought he was a really strong play at 33 rushing yards. Was happy with that. Obviously, he threw 3 picks, which not ideal. Gets hurt in this game. I thought he was done, which would have really sucked. Had an elbow injury. It looked like that he more or less, I don't know, we'll see what comes out throughout the week, but it wasn't his throwing arm, thankfully, so he was able to get back out there and really kind of pad his stats at least a little bit more for us. But if you didn't have Foles in this range, obviously you're kind of drawing dead. In a field size like this, guys, like 34 people, the margin for error is extremely small, especially if there's one stack that's relatively popular that ends up hitting. So the other part of that stack, obviously, was Zach Ertz. And my entire morning, I had pretty much committed to playing Heineke, so I don't really regret the Heineke over Foles a whole lot. I had some Rodgers teams, had some Deshaun Watson teams. Obviously, still trying to skew towards guys that have some rushing ability. Love the game in Green Bay. Ultimately decided to just pay all the way down with Heineke and see what I could jam in from there. So I actually feel fine about that. Not playing Ertz. Ertz was, I mean, if you were around on the Sunday morning stream, Ertz was my favorite tight end by far. Peter echoed that as well. I shout out Peter, taking down some big prizes in some best ball stuff over on Draft. He was talking about that, his sweats on Sunday morning. So shout out Peter there. But yeah, so we both loved Ertz. It was just a position where I didn't really have a team I loved with Evan Ingram the whole week. And I talked about that as well. Originally, my running back core was Zeke, Saquon, and Chubb. I thought Zeke was basically a lock. Don't need to go too much into him. Just his role has been absolutely insane. Still, like 3 weeks in a row now where he's seen an insane amount of touches, hasn't gotten in the end zone. Still think that was fine. Going to Zeke with that kind of role with some question marks around some of these other guys. And then Saquon, like, I guess kept going back to this price tag at 7,900 for a guy that's been priced over 9K a bunch this year. Someone that's seen so much usage. I mean, even in the last game, 21 rushing yards on the ground, 7 targets. Like, I'd pay 7,900 for that every single time. Even in a bad environment, as far as at the line of scrimmage, we know that the Giants line is terrible. Saquon's someone that's battled through that the whole year, so not a whole lot changes, especially when OBJ was ruled out. Thought that there was a chance he could get a few more targets. I think where I kind of went wrong was with the other injuries that the Giants had. They had a couple other things happen as far as between their wide receiver cores. Wish I would have considered Sterling Shepard a little bit more, because I have been on him a bunch the last 2 weeks. Before this, I believe I played him on my main team. Opted to go down to Evan Ingram. I mean, I think Ingram was fine, honestly. Like, he 17.3 points. Obviously, still had an awesome game at 4,600. A guy that's being used like a wide receiver in a condensed target share. I mean, I loved him. My issue was playing Ingram and Barkley together. It's something I've done with Shepard and Barkley in similar situations with OBJ out recently. I was basically trying to make a team where I could still play the Patriots, and maybe that's bad to make a decision based on defense, but I was in between the Patriots and the Vikings most of the morning, Vikings being my more pay-up defense. But I just thought the Patriots were in such a good spot against Buffalo. I talked about their pressure numbers in the YouTube video where I go through a lot of pressure stuff using the Sports Info Solutions database. So check that out this week if you guys didn't check out last week. But one of the things I found was the Patriots were the 6th most pressure. They were giving the 6th most pressure on the slate over the past 4 games. So a team that's been bringing in a lot more lately than over the season. and Buffalo has allowed the most pressures over that same time period. So I thought there was a chance they could get to him. Crazy they didn't even end up with a sack in this game, but they did have a defensive fumble recovery and 2 interceptions. So getting to a guy like Josh Allen, who we know make some mistakes. I thought the Patriots, as a pretty decent sized home favorite at 2,500, was basically a lock on for main teams. 41% in this tournament wasn't surprising at all. So if you pay down for Ingram, pay down for the Patriots, pay down at quarterback, I basically could do whatever I wanted at the running back position. So what it came down to was playing Zeke, was playing Saquon, but McCaffrey, I thought that he would go really low owned, and we talked about this on Sunday. Like, this could go one of two ways, pretty drastically. Like, they scale back his snaps because they don't have a whole lot really to play for, and maybe that really hurts a guy that's been playing almost 100% of the snaps. But crazy to see the touch share that McCaffrey did. I mean, we talked about this being in the range of outcomes, though. Maybe they just don't care. This is a team that ran him. I think he got like 15 touches or something absurd in a preseason game, which is insane. So 21 attempts on the ground, 13 targets. McCaffrey's a guy that if you've been long on him this year, you've been doing well, just because his role has been pretty insane as well. And obviously it gave me a little bit more correlation with Taylor Heineke. And then might as well go right back into kind of the other correlation I went with that, and it was Curtis Samuel. He was my lowest owned play in this tournament. His price was probably a little bit too high at 4,500, but if you ever listen to kind of things that I think matter when a backup quarterback comes in, is who has he shown the most chemistry with in the past, in practice, in preseason, like that kind of stuff. We've seen it time and time again. If you want to go down narrative street, like that's kind of stuff that really matters. These guys are spending a lot of time together. So for Heineke, that guy was Curtis Samuel. And I liked him from the beginning. I thought there was a chance that he would see a ton of targets in this game with Heineke. And then he does usually get some run on the ground as well. Didn't have any rush attempts in this game, but he has recently. So that's something I actually took into consideration a little bit with Samuel and with McKenzie. So 7 catches, 41 yards. He was fine, honestly, at 5.9%. He has shown the ability to have some big plays in the past. And what really did it for me with the Heineke was that tweet that dropped on Sunday morning that he was still going to run the full offense, the read option offense. Like that just, to me, that just shows that they have a lot of confidence in him, number one. But number two, that the offense isn't going to change a ton. It's still going to revolve around Christian McCaffrey. It's still going to revolve around some of these shorter A-dot passes against Atlanta. And like, I thought it was an amazing spot. So getting Curtis Samuel at 5.9%, I thought that was strong with Heineke. Like maybe he breaks a big play. Getting some exposure to McCaffrey with only Heineke was something I considered as well. I mentioned I was thinking about playing Chubb in this, but I had so much salary and couldn't make an Ingram team work with. I couldn't get up to Robert Woods as my number one wide receiver. So when I couldn't really get up to that range, and that's really the one I was trying to attack, I ended up just paying all the way down for these wide receivers, like I mentioned, and just going up to McCaffrey instead of Chubb. I mean, anytime that a guy like Chubb is kind of projected to be massively owned, I have a little bit of question, just because, I mean, again, he was like around 7K, but Saquon's at 7,900, like massive role in the passing game. Zeke, massive role in the passing game. And Chubb, yeah, like things maybe don't go quite his way, and it can go bad a lot easier. Like, yes, I get it. Chubb has been used in the passing game more than he has kind of earlier in the season, but still nowhere near the role of some of these elite guys. So I thought getting up to McCaffrey would make kind of a unique team in this tournament of this size. I did want to be a little bit more unique. I always talk about in these small fields trying to build what you think is optimal, and then making either a slight lineup construction kind of difference or pivot, and doing something with lower owned correlation. So for me, that lower owned correlation was Samuel to Heineke, and then playing McCaffrey with a lot of people with Zeke, Chubb, and Saquon. So that was kind of my thought process with that. Isaiah McKenzie, again, like one of the mistakes I thought I made the week before was playing Kenny Stills behind this defensive line for the Vikings that I thought was going to get pressure a ton on Tannehill. And for these higher 8-dot guys, that really matters. So for me, the higher 8-dot guy to kind of avoid was some of these other Buffalo wide receivers. So going to Isaiah McKenzie, someone that sees some of those shorter shot kind of targets in the slot, the ones where New England really struggles to defend. I thought he was a really awesome play at 3,900. Had him locked in most of the morning. Only one catch. Again, another guy that got injured for parts of this game, did come back and add this catch, but thought I was taking a 0 from that slot. But obviously a little bit of run bad there, but I still think McKenzie was totally fine. Yeah, so that's pretty much my thought process behind this team, guys. Obviously, 20th place, not good enough in a small field like this. You needed 7th. The one other thing about this team, you'll notice I didn't have one player in the afternoon games. And if there's something that I can do differently, I like this team so much that I didn't really put a ton of weight into that. But that said, when Foles starts going nuts, even when kind of earlier in the day where we had Rodgers, like let's just use that as an example, all the Rodgers teams going nuts. I needed to pivot, and obviously I had no flexibility with a team like this, and basically drawing dead with a team that was, I think I was in 5th place or something like that when the afternoon game started, and obviously that's not going to be near good enough to kind of fend off what was coming with some of these higher total games. So even though I liked my team with not having anyone in the afternoon, I do think that that's probably a mistake, just because you never know what's going to happen. Like, you need to give yourself a chance to catch up if something crazy happens in the early games. So that's probably my biggest regret, something that I would like to do a little bit differently. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it, guys. Per usual, we'll keep going through these kind of different lineups in this tournament. There's not as many, obviously, with a smaller field than usual. But yeah, if you think I'm a moron for any of the decisions I made, be sure and let me know. But this is what I landed on. Been a rough couple weeks for sure, but we have one more week to kind of get back at it. Obviously, still locked up profitability in this tournament pretty earlier in the year, so it felt pretty good, even though it hurts. Obviously, taking a shot on the 3100 tourney, but still feel pretty good about kind of the way my thoughts brought me this week. There were some other ways I could have went in roster construction, which we'll talk about as we kind of go through here, but that's how I landed on these teams. Yeah, Heine was such a hero to play through an injury too, Doozy says. Yeah, so I heard Levitan mentioned the McGod from 2 years ago or whatever. He had him in cash or something and came back from an injury. So a pretty similar situation there. It was awesome to see him come back and fight through that. So yeah, I think the Heineke play, definitely no regrets really on that one at all. Elliott not getting touches at the goal line, so tilting. Man, that Dallas team, like, it can go bad in so many ways. Like just watching them in the red zone, like continuously, like I think they were at the 3-yard line, 1st and goal, and they didn't give Zeke the ball one time. You just give him the ball 4 times there, he probably gets in 9 out of 10 times. Yet they're trying to spread things out, throw these fades to, I don't even know who it was, but that was pretty tilting for sure. This makes no sense, and it's maddening to watch. I agree, man. It's been tough to watch those guys for sure. 2 weeks in a row, you played a wide receiver versus your defense, says Maisie or Bowie. Yeah, so that's what I was kind of talking about before. I think it was a mistake last week to play Stills versus my defense, because I really thought they were going to get pressure. And a guy for like Stills that has such a kind of higher ADOT, I do think that was very negatively correlated. I actually feel the opposite about this play. I think that Isaiah McKenzie and the Patriots, like if the Patriots are really going to pay off, I expected them to get a ton of pressure. And for a guy on the other side of the ball that has more of those lower ADOT type targets in the slot, if there's a lot of pressure, hopefully Allen's going to be checking it down to him a lot. So I actually think that McKenzie and Patriots were pretty positively correlated, believe it or not. So I actually think that was an improvement I made on this week than the week before. But yeah, typically, Maisie, I do agree with you. It's normally a negative EV situation to attack a defense with a wide receiver. But McKenzie, again, it's not like he was a 7K wide receiver or something like that. He was a value play that I thought had a really strong floor based on where he would see targets against this team. And again, like you're playing a small field like this, those type of correlations, it's not that they don't matter, but they matter less than if you're trying to get all the way to the top with someone like Manny that's playing the Millionaire Maker and stuff like that. So yeah, so maybe that's bad, but that's kind of that was a decision I made. Would you please elaborate on how you got to Anderson? Thought you were off him for most of the week with the ADOT reason. Yeah, so we should definitely talk about Robbie Anderson. Talked about him on Sunday morning. I was very conflicted, to say the least. So Robbie Anderson is one of those guys that at 4,500, super talented, obviously. It was a tough spot because I did expect Green Bay to get some pressure against this Jets team. So the more research I did into it, and honestly, I wish I would have had this done before the stream. And I can't remember who it was, whether if it was Peter, it might have been Proctor. They were saying like, go back and check the target share when Darnold's pressured. So you can do that kind of stuff at Sports Info Solutions. So I went back, and anytime Darnold's pressure, Robbie Anderson is literally the only guy he's looking for. So I think that his higher A dot, yes, like that kind of stuff matters, but number one at wide receiver, the position where a talent actually is one of the most important things relative to some other positions like running back. Robbie Anderson, talented guy, wide receiver one type target share in this situation where like they are at home obviously, but we expect them to be throwing against Green Bay to try and keep up. This Green Bay secondary, very questionable. There was a lot of things that, I mean, I understand why he was a chalk play. Like I said that on Sunday morning too. I was just trying to figure out if he was worth a fade. And at 73% in this tournament, to me, he was not worth a fade when it came down to it. And what pushed me over the edge, outside of roster construction with 4,500, obviously that's something you had to consider. What pushed me over the edge was when I went back and looked at the target share when Darnold was pressured. And to me, like, it's still volume more over everything, right? So we talked about his weighted opportunity rating, based around some of the other guys, like, and the salaries. Like, I really just couldn't be stubborn and fight it anymore, I guess. Especially in a spot like this, like that's a massive fade. You know, he's probably going to be. I didn't think he'd be 70% owned. I thought he'd be at least 50. It's really tough, and obviously that's a great way to get to the top in a tournament as well. But if it's a spot like this where it's a pretty clear misprice as far as the volume is concerned, like it's a really tough fade. So I didn't play near as much Robbie. Obviously played the Yahoo tournament as well. Then the reverse rake Yahoo tournament. And if you're really trying to get to the top of a really large tournament, I think it makes sense to fade these really high price guys at this percentage. So didn't have near as much Robbie exposure over on Yahoo, but I thought for my main team, it was something that ultimately just didn't make sense based on kind of the further research that I did. What was the winning lineup? Yeah, we should talk about that. Since you mentioned Levitan, what are your thoughts on Robbie in tournaments? Yeah, sorry, I probably missed that before I went on that little rant, but I think that in general, these guys, like, they do make a lot of sense as potential fades, right? But I do think that we do get in the habit sometimes of just thinking like, oh, this guy's going to be 60% owned, like you can't play him in tournaments, and I don't normally think that that's true. I think that the part of being unique in tournaments is a lot of stuff that we look at usually later in this stream. We look at different combinations and what their ownership was, and one of the biggest themes I usually take from that is these combinations we think that are going to be really popular, like they're not as popular as you think, just because roster construction already makes you so much more unique. So like for me, this team was already so unique. I had Heineke, McCaffrey, and Samuel. Only team in this tournament, obviously, that had all three guys. So like to me, this lineup's already so unique. You don't have to just go out of your way to fade chalk, especially if it's good chalk, or if you, like I said, I did some more research as the morning went on. Really had to dig into this Robbie play because it's something that really could make or break what your score was if you kind of go towards that. And I felt like I was on such an island compared to what most people kind of were looking at for that. So it's a situation you at least have to kind of go back and look at again. Awesome. Thanks for the insight. Yeah, no problem. I definitely felt like I had to dig in. Like I said, I wish I would have looked at that before the stream, because I felt, I mean, I obviously went kind of into the Discord, talked about it a little bit more, but on the stream itself, I probably gave the impression that I was fading Robbie Anderson completely, and I was still very conflicted on that, just because, I mean, he was projected to be that owned for a reason. I'm glad I did the research I did. Obviously, it didn't make a ton of difference in my bottom line, but I think going back and look at that process was good. Just hopping in here, I'm curious why you had three Panthers with a backup quarterback even when it worked out. As always, thanks and best of luck to you. Yeah, Nizzles, no worries, man. Like I said, feel free to criticize whenever you guys want, guys. I have some thick skin, not a big deal. I always just want to, so when I'm building my teams, I still want to be able to come in here and actually justify the decisions that I made. So to answer your question, Nizzles, in a field size like this that's really small, what I'm trying to do basically is do something. I want to build what I think is very close to optimal. And to me, a backup quarterback is totally irrelevant. He's 4K. a guy that has rushing ability in a game where we have a pretty condensed target share where McCaffrey has a massive role. I played Heineke with Samuel again because of the chemistry they showed in the preseason. It was pretty clear that Samuel was this guy. So 7 catches, obviously only 41 yards. Could have even had a bigger game for sure. So for me, this was my unique correlation. It was Heineke to McCaffrey to Samuel. No one else in this tournament was going to have that. And then I built kind of what I think was optimal from there. Got guys like Saquon, guys like Zeke, Patriots D, Robbie Anderson, like these guys that should have been in a cash type format around what I thought was a unique correlation. So to me, it doesn't matter if he's a backup quarterback. He was 4K, had rushing ability, was easily stackable. 2 plus the core to be that. Yeah, no, that's no worries, man. Can we see what the percent owned is for Darnold? Yeah, hey, Nizzles, we want to remind me that. So usually we're going to go through the rest of this tournament and look at some other teams, and then we should definitely look and see what Darnold and Eli McGuire, Robbie, and the Millie, that'd be an interesting one to look at, so remind me. All right, so enough about my team. I hope that explains my thought process at least, but let's go to the top. So Nick Foles. Mentioned that Nick Foles is Zach Ertz. If you didn't have him in small field stuff, you were basically drawing dead. So this is a really well-constructed team. So I know that someone, I can't remember who, it might have been Harbs, mentioned 49ers defense as a team to target at 2K. The stone min for defense. Like, again, we know there's so much variance with the defense position that if you can pay all the way down, I definitely don't think that's terrible, because look what it allowed him to do. It allowed him to get up to Foles, Zach Ertz, that stack, but pretty much really prioritized, obviously, the Philly side of this. Alshon Jeffrey at 32%. Wasn't a play that I was on. Honestly, don't think that was as strong as most people did, but for kind of a range, I guess, that I didn't have really the salary for at 5,300, I preferred getting up to a guy like Robert Woods, who he also had, or staying down in that lower range. So Robert Woods at 35%. Thought he was the Ram to attack for sure. Obviously didn't project him to get a rushing touchdown, but that's always nice that he does have those rushing kind of plays, those gadget plays. Like those are really nice because he's being schemed the ball in those situations to get in space. Obviously sets up really well for fantasy. So 6 catches, one of them for a touchdown as well. So pretty massive game for Robert Woods. I think he was pretty much the clear play if you got up to this range at wide receiver to get him in. I definitely made a ton of Robert Woods teams. Couldn't make it work because I really wanted to prioritize getting to Ertz. Ended up on Ingram for a little bit cheaper, but loved the Ertz play. Obviously, like, Houston is a team that has been one of the worst in the league at defending tight ends this year. So loved Ertz, and I actually loved him even more because people were saying that Foles only was passing to Jeffrey, only had eyes for Jeffrey. It's all we heard all week. But you guys don't understand, or at least we talked about it on the stream, so I hope a lot of people got on him. Foles historically has thrown to his tight end a ton, and that kind of dates back to last year. So it was pretty easy to see that it was at least possible that target share was going to skew back towards Ertz. So I definitely think that he was totally fine. 17.6% in this tournament. Big regret for sure not having him. I think that it's really strong at tight end in general to kind of play the barbell effect, right? To either pay all the way up for these guys where we know have more of a secure role like Ertz, Kelsey, Ebron even, or pay all the way down for these guys that have a little bit more variance. If they catch a touchdown, you're way ahead. But from roster construction, you're kind of paying, or at least using salary at the running back position where I think it matters the most by far. So what he did at the running back position was obviously the roster construction nuts, basically. Like, you needed to pay down to a guy like Elijah McGuire in your running back 3 slot. So we had a couple options. We had McGuire. We had a couple other ones, honestly. Like, we could probably go down the list of some of these other guys that we had. Like, we had the Green Bay guy who I'm totally blanking on right now, but it's been a long kind of week. Not Aaron Jones. We'll get to that. I don't know why I'm blanking on his name, but I'm sure he's way up here. That's going to bug me. Not MVS, the running back, doozy. Did no one play this guy? Williams, gosh. I don't know why I couldn't remember that. Anyways, yeah, so Williams. So basically I actually ended up having a decent amount of Williams and McGuire over on Yahoo. But I thought those were the guys that made a lot of sense if you were going to pay all the way kind of to this mid-range. And it just allowed you to get up to guys like Woods and Jeffrey at wide receiver. So obviously if you went that route, it ended up being really strong. So Maguire was a guy. Bales was talking about it earlier in the week about how if we're just looking at trends in general, like these Maguire types guys that have a pretty decent role in the passing game in these type of situations late in the year. There's a ton of really cool things you can do with the trends tool over at Labs. And Maguire, like you could kind of make a really strong case based on historical kind of trends that he was in a really good spot based on his price and median projection. So love the Maguire call. So I ended up with a lot more of these type of plays on my tournament teams over on Yahoo for sure. I guess I got a little bit stubborn with trying to jam in all the volume at running back, but I still think that for the most part is right. Nick Chubb, mentioned him earlier, but still thought he was a great play at 7,300. He really needs to go off for you. And again, like 3 targets in the passing game, totally fine. 9 attempts on the ground, pretty solid, obviously. Over 100 yards on the ground. Thought Chubb was a really good play. Just for some reason, I wanted to try and prioritize getting to McCaffrey. Made that decision pretty late, honestly. So that one obviously worked out. But as soon as they said that Heineke was going to run the full offense, the whole read option offense, I thought that McCaffrey was much more palatable. His price a little expensive, but obviously I mentioned that I decided to go down from Ertz to Ingram, so that's kind of what made that team possible. Rope Dogs with the follow. Welcome, man. Appreciate it. Glad you're with us. So this team obviously smashed compared to a lot of the other teams in the small field, but Foles to Ertz, definitely one that you kind of needed. Again, guys, as we kind of go through, definitely throw any names that you want me to look at in the chat. We'll go through this, and then we'll kind of go through. Might as well do that right now. Let's go over to the sub only contest and check out the first place winner there, and then we'll give away some more gifted subs as well. So sub only contest, same thing as far as my team. Finished well above or kind of finished around halfway, which was great because that means 25 free subs for you guys on this stream. If we go all the way to the top, D Shore. Was D Shore in the chat earlier? I thought he was. He was in the Discord earlier. If he is, hey, congrats, man. I thought your team was really well constructed. And a unique kind of thing that you did with playing a wide receiver in the flex. So that's something I do a ton. But you did have the Foles Ertz combination, which I thought was super sharp. Really different team in general, man. I thought that it was a really unique type of tournament team for sure. So Kamara and Maguire, so like totally faded Zeke, totally faded Saquon, totally faded a lot of these other really popular running back plays. But I like what he did trying to get the Juju at 2%. So anytime we can get a guy, I know he was banged up with the groin, but he's just such a talented guy. You can get him at such low ownership in a game where we really liked it for scoring. Obviously, highest total of the entire week. Obviously, it was unfortunate what happened at the end with the fumble, but got 24 points from him. But really did it for you was getting Foles, obviously, in this team, but then TY as well. So this roster construction, very unique. Got 14 from his defense, which was solid, obviously, but pretty interesting, man. Yeah. So you liked Juju because of PJ Williams. Interesting. What was your thought process with T.Y. Hilton in the flex and kind of fading some of these more chalky running backs? We'll start there. But yeah, he did play Robbie Anderson. Robbie Anderson only 41% in our tournament. Alshon 41 as well. So you guys are too sharp, man. A lot of I feel like I always say that when we go through this, but some pretty sharp ownership percentages in this when I was looking at it earlier. But yeah, man, really sharp team. Let's give away some more subs. So I think we did 5 earlier. Let's do 10 now. And then we'll give away 10 more in a bit. So let's see what happens here. You guys are going to make me go broke, man. All right. ASDAF255, Dobster 2.0, Corb 450, AJPWX7. Guys, some of these names are so hard to pronounce. I apologize if I mess those up. Unknown Element, Kosi Kaswar, Brodzi with the gift. Who's gift? As if I'm gifting a sub for Brodzi. That guy can afford it. I'm just giving you shit, Brodzi. Didn't even know you were in the chat, man. So any of the NHL guys in the chat, Brodzi, one of my ex-teammates at St. Cloud, is in LA now. So hope you're getting healthy, man. Would love to get the community on you in DFS. High volume shooter guys, Johnny Brazinski, remember that name. Um, Sam Jeffcoat with a tier one sub. Yeah, hope you guys take advantage of it for sure. Still tons of time left to kind of get rolling on some of these other sports as well. Yeah, we like high volume shooters, Doozy. Bradsy's our guy. I actually played him on FanDuel a couple of years ago, or maybe it was last year. I can't remember. They messed up his position. He was actually a defenseman. Bradsy's a forward. Um, so yeah, LA needs him, man. Let's just say that LA needs him to get healthy. So yeah, pumped to fire at Brodsy at about I don't know what his salary will be, but it'll start low for sure. Get healthy, bro. Anyways, yeah, I'll take the Venmo back for that free sub. You don't need it. Let's give it to someone else. All right, man. Yeah, sharp team from D Shore. Really sharp teams in this in general. Maybe we'll talk about a couple other teams in here as well. Doozy, are you in here? Are you Doots 5'8"? Or is that I don't think you are. Doozy, what's your name? Let's look at your team. Oh yeah, you're way down here, buddy. All right. No, I'm down there. Just keep scrolling down. And then yeah, we'll look at Ali's team for sure. Ali, is your name on DraftKings the same? Yeah, Ali, let me know in a second. I'll look at yours next. Um, so Doozy went with Chubb, Zeke, Elijah McGuire. Really strong core. I think that's like three of the guys that I was messing around with those combinations for sure. Taylor Heineke obviously gave him all the savings in the world to get up to a guy like DeAndre Hopkins, who we loved. Did hit the 100-yard bonus, didn't get in the end zone, but still a really strong game from DeAndre against Philly. He was talking about Dallas Goedert. I'm so pumped that you actually had the balls to do that play. Actually, just trips on his way to the end zone, or that could have been a massive differentiator for you, man. So, 2,600. If everyone loves Ertz, like Philly's playing all these two tight end sets now, like I actually love the Goddard play of paying all the way down. I wish you would have got a touchdown out of that, man. So you played ESB through. I thought these cheap Green Bay guys. I ultimately thought that they were a little bit thin based on some of the other guys down there, like McKenzie that I mentioned. I thought were a little bit safer, but it really paid off for the people that really tried to stack up this Jets game, obviously, and pay down for some of these wide receivers. But did get up to Vikings D, getting them at 7% strong. Obviously, just 7 points from them, but again, a team that was pressuring a ton against Detroit, who's been giving up a ton of pressure lately. So love the Minnesota play. This is a sharp team, man. Amari Cooper, that's still not one that I was really considering, but in a tournament situation at 7,500, always in play. So like for me, playing Amari Cooper when I'm paying down for Chubb and Elijah McGuire isn't something that I would typically do, but I get it. There was question marks with CMC. There was question marks with Saquon. We love Chubb, Elijah McGuire. Elijah McGuire was like the reverse Marlon Mack play, right? Like Marlon Mack was a guy that, we loved him for what he was going to touch on the ground for sure. Just had no like involvement in the passing game whatsoever. Like at least we know Elijah McGuire is going to be used in the pass game. 5 targets, 50 yards through the air, only 35 yards on the ground, but gets in the box obviously twice. I thought there was a ton of upside from that one. So sharp team, Doozy. Obviously, it didn't really work out for you, man, 42nd. But I think that your thought process was good outside of maybe getting up to Amari. You've been listening to Peter too much, man. All right. Allie's team, Avit 777. Are you all the way at the top, Allie? 19th. All right. All in all, oh yeah, I wanted to hear what D Shore was talking about with Ty. He was all in on Ty all day. I was expecting people to be team jam them in and wanted to get leverage on the field. Hey man, you accomplished that for sure. I always I'm curious how people land on those type of plays, and if it was just to get leverage, man, on a kind of conviction play that you had, I think that's totally fine. Unknown element. Thanks for the gifted sub. No problem. Thanks for being here. Again, guys, if you've only been kind of checking out some of the NFL shows, I would really appreciate it, honestly, if you jump into some of the streams throughout the week. I say in the Discord a decent amount too. If you're not a hockey fan, if you're not dipping into a ton of other DFS sports, just do me a favor. You see me go live. If you're following me, if you're subscribed to me on Twitch, open up a tab. Would really help me out. Just got to try and get some of those numbers up a little bit to try and hit partner. So if there's one thing you can do for me, unknown element, it's make sure you check out the streams throughout the week. I'd really appreciate it. Elliott over C-Mac feels like a mistake. Yeah, so I mean, C-Mac had a lot of risk, man. Like if he would have, so there's two things, right? So three interceptions from Heineke obviously was not good for his touchdown upside for sure. So that was a real kind of threat to McCaffrey's ceiling for sure. Um, I don't think Zeke over C-Mac was a mistake at all. I think Zeke was probably one of the biggest locks on the slate for sure, based on what his role has been. He was one of the guys that didn't have as much of the question marks around him. So I think that was fine, man. Chickened out with CMC and Heineke in there. Yeah, Equity Bob, PogChamp. We got to get some emotes, guys. We have some ideas. If you have any cool ideas for emotes, throw them to Jordan in the Discord. We're working on it. It's tough with the holidays to get that stuff done. Okay, Allie's team. We always end up kind of over here on the sub contest and looking at subs teams more than some of the other ones, but totally cool to mix it up. Foles to Ertz. Love that, obviously. Saquon, Kamara, Marlon Mack. Kind of gave my take on Marlon Mack, but again, like at his price, still was definitely in the player pool till very late in a game that I said could basically go either way. Like Indy was going to get out ahead, and Marlon Mack was going to get pound and look like a great value, or the Giants were going to play well, and Marlon Mack, someone that's not involved in the passing game, was going to struggle to hit value or at least really help your team. So love the Saquon call, obviously. So Ali opted to fade Zeke and played Kamara at low ownership. So 7,400 for Kamara allowed her to do a lot more with this roster for sure. And the big play for her was trying to get up to Adam Thielen, who I mean, I love Thielen against Detroit. It's really tough to play these guys that against Detroit, at least, where we know that they like to kind of slow down the pace a ton. And at 7,800, it was a pretty great price for a guy that's been seeing volume the whole year, just hasn't really been getting in the box as much lately. Panthers defense, yeah, so a lot of passing kind of volume, hopefully from the Atlanta side. I think Carolina's going to play well. But again, it's probably more of a price thing. At 2,400, decent pivot, I guess, off of the New England play. Robert Foster, I had some concerns with Foster based on the offensive line. I think love. So Foster versus McKenzie, I wanted to play McKenzie because I thought that he was going to see more of the shorter targets in the slot. Foster more of an outside threat, obviously. These type of games, these 454 games, are definitely still in his range of outcomes. But getting Robert Foster at 2% in this tournament is super interesting. Cody Core, I honestly didn't have the stones to play any of these Cincy guys. But we knew that with all these injuries that they had, like someone had the chance to have a really good game. Not really that surprised that Cody Core was one of the ones that, I mean, at 7.6 points, definitely didn't kill this team at all. Yeah, pretty interesting team. I think like the theme that, like looking at this, like obviously Foles to Ertz, really sharp there for sure. It's a lot of like pivots, like price pivots is what I'm seeing. So like Marlon Mack instead of like the Elijah McGuire tier, Kamara instead of like the Chubb type tier at 7,400. So another price pivot like Thielen over like the Hopkins tier, Cody Core over like some of the other cheap wide receivers. So I see like a team of like pretty good plays, obviously, but like more like this is a very like well constructed, like I like this spot, but I'm gonna pivot to what I think is the second or third best option at that price. That's going to be way lower owned. So 2%, 3%, 7%, 2% defense. Same range as the Patriots, 2,400. So I think that was probably the goal, Allie. But yeah, we'll have to talk about that a little bit more as the week goes on. Let's see. Mack and Cooper not doing well. Could have hurt me. Travi. Yeah, let's look at Travi's team. Hulk memes for emotes seems obvious. Yeah, we want Hulk memes. We definitely want some money lighting on fire or something like that. I think that'd be funny. An LFG team for sure, or an emote for sure. We got a couple ideas. We'll see. I'm jealous of Hodge's emotes. Love the Hodge emotes. Okay, Travis team. I was hoping you'd be at the top, man. All right. Heineke. So you did pay down to two of your running back slots, one with Mack, one with McGuire. Did play Zeke. in order to get up to Devontae Adams and Amari Cooper. Devontae Adams was a play. I mean, I loved it. I love this game. I mentioned on the stream that this Green Bay New York Jets game, like if we were talking about the line of scrimmage, which we talk about a lot, second best matchup at the line of scrimmage of the entire week was Rodgers against the Jets. Thought that the pace was good, the plays were good. Like this was a game that was very projectable to score points, and it was very stackable because some of the really strong options like McGuire and et cetera basically were cheaper. So love that. Devontae Adams, Traquan at 2%. I mean, you kind of know what you're getting with plays like this, like, but attacking a high total game with a lower owned, cheaper option, I think is at least interesting. Eagles defense. Yeah, I talked about the Eagles a little bit. I didn't end up going there, but at 2,100, they were my favorite pay all the way down option. Yeah, so I mean, Houston ended up scoring a ton of points in this game. I mean, they still got 4 sacks, guys. They got pressure. They did have a defensive fumble recovery. A game like this kind of stat log for a defense play, you can't feel bad about that at 2,100. So like if you're getting that much pressure to get 4 sacks, like we know that Watson takes sacks, you're probably in a pretty decent spot to at least have the opportunity for more turnovers and really just have to hit the pick six or the fumble recovery touchdown at that point. But I thought the Eagles were fine, man. Just kind of like some tough spots here. Again, like Amari Cooper, I just want to let other people make these type of plays, man. Like I'll miss out on the Amari Cooper blow up games, and that's totally fine for me. Yeah, let's check out your team, Tobes. Pete got me on Mac. I think Mac was an awesome play. I think he was a good like large field GPP play. I think I had 1 or 2 Mac teams on Yahoo. Thought he was fine, honestly, but DraftKings for me, especially if I'm only playing one lineup, which I am most weeks, didn't make the cut for me on my final team. Tobes, let's see. I think you finished pretty far up, didn't you? 13th. 174.44. Let's see what your score would have been like in the 3K. You would have just bubbled the 3K, Tobes. And I'm probably saying your name wrong. If you want to tell me in the Discord anyone, if I say your name wrong, I'm going to defend you. Let me know in the Discord, and I will try and correct that. But you would have just bubbled the 3K with that score. But obviously, Foles to Ertz, love that. DeAndre Hopkins, who we loved, did play Alshon as well. So like pretty much a really sharp stack, obviously, with Foles, Ertz, Jeffrey, bring it back with DeAndre Hopkins. So I like that. Did play Zeke, paid down with Coleman and Balaj. So Balaj play, a couple people I know decided to go there, and I was a little bit curious of that. But I mean, for a guy that's been seeing the volume that he has at 3,700, like if you get his 12 to 15 touches or so, it's one that could work out, break a big play. I'm never actively trying to target Miami, but it's more of a price thing, I'm sure, with Balaje. I'm just not really trying to make those, I guess, pay down type of plays at running back, but certainly think it makes sense to get up to a guy like DeAndre like you did. Jeffrey obviously wasn't super cheap compared to some of these other ones. So, yeah, I think that this is totally fine. Mentioned how much I liked Vikings D. I think there was a little bit of run bad there as well with Vikings and Philly. Again, 3 sacks. Like, they're getting pressure, guys. Like, these are, you're going to look at this at the end of the day and be like, damn, I kind of miss it defense. But, like, if you're getting these teams that are getting sacks, like if there was pass attempts on the other side of the game, which there was, I think you're on the right track at defense when you land on these type of stat lines. So it's abbreviated for tired of the BS. Oh my God, that's hilarious. I had no idea that was what your name was. All right. What do you think about Hines stealing a TD from Mac? Like, yeah, definitely tilting for sure. Hines is a guy, like, if you're rolling out a bunch of teams, always makes sense. Like, if everyone's, well, not everyone, but Mac was relatively popular, playing the pass catcher on that team certainly makes some sense from a leverage perspective for sure. All right. Let's pivot over to 3K. Was there any other teams you guys wanted me to check on here? Did Peter play this? I always like to at least look. I don't think he did. Chipotle. Breda was a guy that I saw from a lot of high stakes players this week. I think Empire played him as well. Breda was an interesting one. Yeah, so Breda, Uzoma. I mentioned Uzoma as a pay down option, by the way, at 3,300. Thought he was strong. If you didn't like any of the wide receivers for Cincy, condensed target share, Uzoma running the most routes on the entire slate on DraftKings. Kelsey was right ahead of him on the slate with that included this KC game. But Uzoma is super interesting, I think, at that price. Sterling Shepard, a lot of sharp guys went back to that well, and I guess I jumped off at the wrong time. All right, let's check out some stacks, guys, before we kind of get out of here. So the first thing that I put in was Zeke and Robbie Anderson. So 25% of the teams in the 1500 main event Millionaire Maker had Zeke and Robbie Anderson. 55% owned for Zeke, 40% for Robbie Anderson. If we add in a guy like Saquon to this, it drops very quickly. If we add in a guy like Alshon Jeffrey, a little bit more popular. New England D. Still pretty popular. 5%, guys. That's still like a three-way combination. That's not, that's pretty popular for sure still. What was the one that we were going to check earlier? Darnold and Robbie Anderson? Let's check in the bigger Millie Maker for that one. Darnold. 4%, almost 5% of teams had Darnold to Robbie Anderson. We have a huge proposal due to Friday, and I'm ahead of pricing. Oh, what's up, Steve? How we doing, man? All right, so any other stacks you guys want me to look at? I guess we're already going a little bit longer than normal, but thought it was a really good conversation today, guys. Week 17 is going to be an interesting one. Obviously, it revolves a lot around news, which we'll talk about for sure, but it's going to be an interesting one. Rodgers, Williams, Adams. Yeah, that's a good one. So Rodgers, wow, Rodgers is only 3% owned in the big Millie. I bet he was a lot higher owned in the 1500. Yeah, almost double the ownership in the bigger one. So Rodgers to Devontae Adams, 5%. So pretty much everyone that played Rodgers played him with Adams. Williams. Yeah, so only like a fifth of those teams. So 52 of the 3,700 teams had the three-way stack with Jamal, Rodgers, and Devontae. So that's a pretty interesting one. M. Kanya with the follow. Welcome, M. Kanya. What took you so long to get here, honestly? Week 16, week 17 coming up. Just kidding. Thanks for being here. That's great. All right, guys, so any other kind of stacks to look at? Let's see how many people in the 1500 played Ertz with Foles. Who do I miss here? Got Rodgers in there, that's why. Okay, so Ertz, Foles. Wow, over 8% of teams in this tournament had Ertz with Foles. And Foles without Ertz, it doubles to 16%. Pretty interesting, honestly. McCaffrey was still 16. So let's see who played McCaffrey with Heineke. Almost 5%. So McCaffrey was still relatively owned in the 1500. That's interesting. Bigger NHL player. Hey, we got another NHL player? We love that. M. Kanya. Perfect. Are you playing a lot of Classic? You playing some Showdown? Are you playing a little bit of Tiers as well? We do everything around here. So pumped that you'll be around for those. It's NATO. Do you take into account large part of narratives in Week 17? Not so much narratives, but I think information is so important. It's not a preseason slate. It's not an NBA slate. But it's still like... So we talk about jamming in all these running backs and really trying to have the majority of our salary go to those guys. This week, it's not that I don't care as much about that stuff. It's just I do think that like trying to build the optimal team, like a lot of times, like you really have to like pay attention to some of this new stuff, and you can't just blindly ignore a mispriced player. And then there's going to be a lot of guys that are priced up that are basically out of play, basically because we don't know what their usage is going to be like. So it's always an interesting week. It never quite goes directly as planned, but I do think that there's a really big edge in these type of weeks that are coming up. Week 17, postseason. We made it through the grind of the season as far as Classic goes. So this time of year is the time to really put the pedal down for sure. M. Kanya, all Classic for the most part. Awesome. We're going to be doing a ton of that as well. So happy you're here with us. All right, guys, we're going to kind of wrap this up a little bit. Appreciate you guys all being here again. Hope everyone had an awesome holiday. I'm excited to kind of jump back into this again. If you're curious of what other streams will be throughout the week, I did post a schedule over on Twitter. You can find that at Joe Holka. And again, if any of you guys are here throughout the week, make sure that you're jumping into Discord. And then as well, do me a favor, throw me a sub over on YouTube as well. Those are the three kind of pillars that I want to always touch on: YouTube, Twitch, and Discord. So we do a lot of stuff on all three platforms. Going to continue to kind of do that as well. All right, guys, I'm going to let you guys get on with the rest of your night. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. All right, good talk. See you out there.